Well, today's the day, the anniversary day of the day that all this craziness started here in California, because it was on this date, January the 24th, all the way back in 1848, that up in Northern California, old James Marshall was digging around and he saw something down on the ground and leaned over and picked it up, and it was shiny, and it turned out to be a big old gold nugget. From that sprung the gold rush and California statehood, and millions of people swarming into the state and hadn't stopped since. So in recognition of that important date, on this anniversary date of January the 24th, let's go back in time to the very place where it all happened, to the place where gold was discovered in California. Enjoy. This program airs statewide on California Public Television and is a California's Gold classic. Hi, I'm Huell, and here we are on an absolutely spectacular fall morning. The air is crisp, the sky is blue, the leaves are beginning to change their color. Now, we've come to El Dorado County, about 40 miles east of Sacramento. Right down there is the Coloma Valley, the South Fork of the American River. Now, we're here not just because this is one of the most beautiful scenic views you'll find anywhere in our state. We're here to explore this valley because many people will tell you that this is the location of the most important historic site in our entire state. And I think they're right. And if you're curious as what we're going to find, why this is such a historic place, all you have to do is come on along with us as we continue our search together in this beautiful and historic place for California's gold. Welcome to the little community of Coloma, which is part of Marshall Gold Discovery State Historic Park. A beautiful park with all kinds of neat historic old buildings and lots of trees and open spaces. And why is this place so important? Well, it was here 150 years ago that old James Marshall bent over and picked up a small nugget of gold, and in so doing started a gold rush that would dramatically change the face of California forever. Good morning.
Good morning, Huell. Welcome to Marshall Gold Discovery State Historic Park.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
You bet, you bet.
Basically, what you're saying is that this is a state historic park, but it is not just your average run-of-the-mill state historic park.
Absolutely not. It's well, I like to say in my budget request, the single most important state historic park in the western United States.
Now, why do you say that?
Why do I say that? Well, this is the place, really, where gold was discovered in California. That gold discovery sparked the greatest migration of man for a single purpose since the Crusades. And most of us who are here in California are here for the same reasons the gold miners are here.
Looking for gold.
Looking for gold, looking for California gold, just like you're doing.
Now, is this where it all happened, right in this area?
The actual discovery itself took place about 300 yards from here, down the river. We'll walk to that spot in a little while.
But you've got all this old mining stuff set up here.
This machinery that's set up here are examples of the mining machinery that were used throughout California's gold mining history. These are stamp mills. There are two stamp mills here, but I want to take you back, step back a little bit further in time to meet a couple of fellows over here sitting around the campfire cooking their miners' dinner.
Oh boy, we got the real thing here.
Hey, you got the real stuff.
Good morning, fellas.
Good morning, howdy, how you doing?
What's going on over here?
Cooking some grub. We're ready for grub.
Grub?
It's about that time of day.
Now, are you a miner?
I'm an old miner.
You bet. You're an old miner?
Well, I'm a young miner. I haven't been around as long as that old boy.
And you're an old miner?
Well, not so old, but I've been here a while.
Well, have you had much luck?
Well, what do you think by looking at us? Do we look very prosperous?
Well, that's true. I didn't want to say anything.
All
but-
the guys with luck went home with their money. I mean, their gold dust, I'm afraid.
All right, let's get out of character here for just a minute. What is this the way the miners would have sat around the campfire and actually cooked their grub?
Yep, you bet.
And what are you having today?
Chili?
Have you done enough research to know whether these guys were well fed and nourished and all of that when they were up here?
Malnutrition was fairly common for most miners because most of the food they had just wasn't up to par. It wasn't what they were used to eating back in the East. It's pretty much whatever you could get your hands on. And rancid bacon, beans, stuff like that.
A lot of scurvy too, because they had trouble getting fresh vegetables and fruit. So they were eating mostly beans and like breads and things like that. And the vegetables and fruit were hard to get. So a lot of miners died of scurvy.
Yeah. Now you look fairly healthy there.
Yeah, don't get too much to eat. I do what I can. I haven't done too good.
Oh boy, look at the bottom of his shoes there.
Sometimes.
You've been out all across the countryside.
Some of us found some and some of us didn't, you know.
Uh-huh.
A lot of us spend on down at the hotel. Them women get it all, you know.
You spend all your money on women instead of on food.
Well, when you buy your grub, it's pretty expensive anyhow. $1 for a piece of bread, $1 for an egg, 1 egg for $1, as much as $5 for a dinner or a lunch in a restaurant if you're lucky to get one of those.
Now, did they do that because they knew that you had to spend that amount of money on it, or was it?
Captive audience. In 1997 terms, just supply and demand. They had us, and we were here, and it's the only place we could get it.
Yeah. So you had to pay whatever they asked you for the
Whatever
food.
they ask, if you wanted to get it, that's what you had to do.
Yeah. Now, would you all have been? Let's stand up and get a shot of all these guys. Is this the way you would have actually been dressed to do your work?
Most of the miners started out with whatever they came with. If they came from the east, they would whatever they came across with, and they would have worn back there as farmers. If they came from Mexico or the south, they'd come from their native land with whatever they were wearing. And then when they got here, they'd actually trade outfits. If my outfit got old and holey like his boots were, I might be able to buy a new shirt, and I'd throw my old shirt out behind the store, and the next miner might come along and his shirt maybe looked worse than mine, so he'd take mine and throw his down. And so there was a lot of trading that went on like that, and the guy that was able to get the newest clothes is what he wore. So a lot of the styles really evolved as people just lived here, and whatever they could get a hold of, and a lot of the things that they were able to get, they just kind of made do with.
But you've got, let's get the three of you together here. That really is a 49er look, isn't it?
Yep, this is pretty much what they wore. This kind of a hat, and a felt hat with the suspenders and the muslin shirt.
And a red shirt. Red was big, wasn't it?
Red was big, yes it was.
Why was red so big?
Now, I really don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know.
I think it's because the long john just came that way. That's the way they were, so that's what we wore. That's what we put on.
Now, is this the kind of tent, the living conditions that miners would have had?
If this was probably one of the most, this would be a little bit elaborate actually.
Really?
Some of them started to build cabins if they were going to stay a while, but a lot of the miners moved a lot up and down the mother lode. So they'd move from one place to another, and sometimes they'd just set up a lean-to or sleep out under the stars. A lot of these tents were made out of the sails from the ships that came out of the bay. When the people would come in on the ships, they'd take the sails off and bring them along. So you would see a lot of the ships without sails because the sails were up here being used as lean-tos and tents.
And I bet the sails, though, were rugged enough to actually last and hold up when they were being used.
Well, most definitely, and it was, if you were lucky enough to have canvas, then you were also increasing your chances of longevity, because if you had to sleep on the ground without any cover, you know, some people didn't even have a luxury of a blanket. If you had a tent, you were in great shape. You weren't going to be as exposed to the elements as a lot of other miners would be.
Yeah. The miners really weren't prepared when they came here, were they? They just came in search of gold.
They were looking for their fortune, and whatever they came with is what they came with, and they kind of made do as they went.
It took them about an ounce a day for them to make a living. I'm going to give you a nugget that I found last October.
Oh my gosh, now that's not really a nugget.
Yes, it is. It's a little over 3 ounces. So that would have lasted a miner in 1848, 49, because of supply and demand. It would last him about 3 days of food and supplies. And if they didn't make that, Then they were down to beans and nothing. But
Wait a minute, you mean they had to find this much gold even back then
About
to
every 3
survive
days.
for 3 days?
yes, sir. Because until roads came in and teamsters were able to bring in the wagons with enough supplies, everything else was brought in on people's back.
This is a lot of gold.
That is. We found 3
Boy,
of
it
these.
feels good in my hand too. And these guys over here are eyeing it too.
We'll have to catch up with him later tonight.
You fellas hadn't seen this much gold in a while, have you?
It's been a while.
That's why they're eating beans.
That's a nice nugget. That's a nice nugget.
Matt, there were people living here in Coloma before gold was discovered, weren't there?
Yes, there were. A group of Native Americans called the Nisenan lived in the Coloma Valley, and that's, a matter of fact, where the valley got its name, Coloma. They made friends with and worked with James Marshall, and really didn't get paid back what they deserved for their help. They were pretty much annihilated by the miners when they came.
And the Chinese were here.
Yes, the Chinese came in the 1840s and mined, or in the late 1840s, and mined with the miners as hired help, and then ultimately wound up buying some of the places that were not mined, and then mined underneath existing buildings. And
So the
made a fair
Chinese
living.
stayed. The Chinese stayed
Chinese
here.
did stay, yes. Mhm.
And today we have 2 of the original. Are these original Chinese
These
stores?
are original buildings. These buildings were built in the late 1850s, and they were leased to the Chinese. This one was a bank. That one was an apothecary shop and a grocery store and a restaurant. And these were called the Wahop and the Man Lee store here in Coloma.
So the Chinese heritage is still here, and of course the mining history is all around us. Is this basically the whole town right here?
Well, the town begins about a quarter mile behind us and goes all the way up through the center of town, as you can see here, right along 49. Right in this area are foundations of old buildings, lawyers' offices, hotels, apothecary shops.
How many
on and
people
on.
lived here at the height?
At the height of it, they say 40,000 people passed through the Coloma Valley in the first 2 years.
You're kidding.
40,000.
40,000 people right here?
Passed through Coloma. They didn't all live here. At the height of Coloma's township, about 10 to 12,000.
12,000. And
Right.
today it's
About 150.
It's one of the few California towns to go down it. Well, actually, all of these gold rush towns went way up in population
And then,
went way down.
That is correct.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Doing just fine.
Nice to see you.
One of the high points of our day in Coloma was getting to meet and talk with James Marshall himself, who was standing out by a replica of Sutter's mill, which of course is where he found that famous gold nugget back in 1848.
I seen this little piece of yellow in the river, and I reached down and I picked it up. My heart just started pounding. I sucked in my breath. I picked this up in about half the size of a pea. I gathered it, put it on a flat rock, and I gathered another round rock, and I started pounding it and pounding it. And the more I pounded it, the thinner it got, and it didn't shatter like sulfur to copper, but instead it sort of turned into an irregular shaped coin. So I knew I'd found gold. So I put a few more of these pieces in the crown of my hat. I walked over to the boys who were having breakfast in the morning. I said, "Boys, by God, boys, I believe I found a gold mine."
Now, did you know that it was gold?
I did. Yeah, I did. As soon as I started pounding it at the river, because of my familiarization with geology as a fifth grade education back in New Jersey.
Did you know you had stumbled on a lot of gold,
No.
or did you think it was just a little bit of gold?
There were a few nuggets in the river, enough for me to pick up a few nuggets to prove to the people here in the miners' camp that there was in fact gold that was found.
Now we have come to the actual South Fork of the American River. This is where it happened.
This is where it happened. It's just a few short yards from where we are now is the site of the original sawmill that was built by James Marshall and in partnership with John Sutter. And then a little further down the stream is the actual gold discovery site. That's probably the most exciting place that we're going to be today.
Sutter's Mill.
Sutter's Mill.
Sutter's name is almost as famous as Marshall's, isn't it?
Yes. So Sutter had an incredible empire in what he called New Helvetia, 78,000 acres that was granted to him by the Mexican government. And it was just quite an enterprise.
But the fact that it happened at Sutter's Mill, that's a name that stuck, isn't it? You know, through history, Sutter is...
That's exactly right.
But it was really just his mill. That's all.
That's right. It wasn't even his mill. He was in partnership with Mr. Marshall in building the mill. Marshall brought the skill and the knowledge and know-how of how to build a mill, and Sutter supplied the men and supplies and money.
Now this is the actual spot right over here where Sutter's Mill was, where that gold was actually discovered that morning.
This is the site of Sutter's sawmill.
This is the actual site.
Right on the river. This monument marks the very end of the tail race, or the very end of the race where the mill stopped and the tail race began. The mill actually went right out into the river about at that angle. The river, of course, has changed course over time, but this is the spot where the mill was built.
How do we know it was actually right here?
There was an archaeological study, first one done in 1927, and then finished off in 1947 by a very famous archaeologist by the name of Heiser.
So it was here.
It was here.
And this is the monument right here to commemorate the spot. And here all our old miners out here kind of probably thinking back and wondering what those original miners must have felt like.
They were feeling like they hoped that they could go home with a lot of gold in their poke.
Yeah. And they were doing it right here.
Right here. That's the spot where it started. From here they went 130 miles.
All around here.
Right.
But this is ground zero.
This is the beginning.
This is ground zero right here. This is where it all started.
I want to take you now to the spot where Mr. Marshall picked up that first piece of gold.
So this isn't the spot.
This is the spot where the mill was. This is the spot where the mill was. But this is, if you go downstream a little bit, is where the gold was. And that's where we're going to go now. That's the exciting part.
Well, this has been pretty exciting so far. It's got to get better than this.
It does get better.
All right,
You
let's
bet.
go.
You bet.
We got a whole entourage here, and we got some gold pans with us in case we see anything floating around. We're going to get it. Now we are in the spot.
This is the spot. This is the spot where, as close as history can figure it, where James Wilson Marshall bent down into this tail race, into this body of water, and picked up the very first piece of gold that started the California Gold Rush.
Right here.
Right about here, within 10 yards of where we are now.
Because, you know, this is almost, this is an unbelievable feeling to be in the spot, because it probably really, as far as the geography is concerned, hasn't changed that much.
No, the tree there were a few more trees on the hillsides. The river probably was pretty much in the course that you see it now. The tail race, of course, was dug right here. It was lined with logs and planks to direct the water back to the river, but pretty much this is it. This is the spot.
And before long, all these old miners had come in.
It didn't take long for these guys to get here.
Would all of those early days here in Coloma, this would have been the way they would have?
Classically, yes.
With a gold pan.
With a gold pan, because when they first came here, the batea, which was a wooden bowl that was really brought up from South America, is what was used, but it wore out so quickly. And with kind of American ingenuity, these
came up with the tin pans.
That's right. And
were they made of tin?
No, they were done by the blacksmith of the day. They would have fabricated them just that way. They probably changed the angle from time to time, but classically this is the diameter and the proper angle that they found that they could work that gold bearing ore most efficiently.
And it was created because of what was found here.
That's
The gold pan was invented because of what you found right here.
There was a need for it. A lot of other people not only used gold pans, they used wash basins, metal wash basins, they used frying pans, skillets, whatever, anything that would hold water and dirt that would allow them to wash anything out with, they used. I mean, whatever you brought with you, you couldn't just go and buy a gold pan. You know, whatever was there. Indians, when they learned what was going on, used willow baskets. I mean, anything that could be put into use to wash sand and gravel was used for panning gold.
So I'm getting the idea of gold fever right
That's
here.
right.
They were coming down here with frying pans, baskets, skillets, anything they could find to get the gold out of here.
Anything that would do the job, that's correct.
And the place was full of guys like you doing what? Let's demonstrate for them what you would have been doing.
You can talk and I'll do the pan.
Okay. Well, the first thing you have to do is just get your pan full of pay dirt. Just scoop up a bunch of sand and gravel, or if you had a shovel, you dig it up. And then what he's going to do is he's going to saturate all the material in the pan in order to settle out any gold that's in it. And then slowly wash off the top layers without disturbing what's underneath. As he saturates everything, then
oh my gosh,
look
there's
at
the gold.
Look at that. Look at that big piece of gold. And that's enough to get your heart going. That is enough for the miner's first attempt. Now, later on, when he's doing his 50 pans a day and he's just making ends meet, that just is a couple of days worth of grub, and he's not going to get that excited about it.
Well, we've already seen that piece of gold once, but to see it coming out of the place where it would have really come out of.
Right. Yeah, well, we think that the pieces that Marshall found in the tail race were deposited through the action of actually lowering the tail race. They had a problem operating the mill because the tail race just didn't have a low enough elevation. The water wouldn't pull away from the mill to make the wheel turn. So they did a combination of blasting and sluicing at night to let the water force the material out. In the cracks in the bedrock where they were doing the blasting is where Marshall found those very first pieces of gold. And it must have been a very exciting moment for him. No one else is around, right here on this spot, picking up these little tiny flecks of gold. And I wished I could have been there. I really do. I mean, it must have been the most exciting thing that he ever experienced in his life.
Without having any idea what this was starting.
Right. Well, yeah, no concept. It's just he found gold, and you know, he found a gold mine, and you know, he was like everybody else that came after him, wanting to strike it rich at that point. Of course, he also had a mill to finish too, and he was determined to do that first. And it started off one of the greatest migrations of humanity we've ever seen.
Well, it's pretty neat to be standing right here.
Isn't it something? You know, the thing that this is giving me, the fact that we've brought all these people here with us, these docents who are miners, who have their heart and soul in the history of this place, it's really given me a special feeling about this spot. And I've been here for 12 years. And, you know, it's just really brought it back home to me as to really how important this place was and the attraction that it was. I mean, picking up that 3-ounce piece of Joe's Nugget there, that'd make your heart thump.
Well, here we are back at the campfire. We're getting ready to have our meal here, and to end this whole thing up, there's another part of this story, and that is the musical part of the gold rush. Explain that to us.
Well, music was everywhere in the gold rush. Music was extremely important to the miners. It was the only entertainment and almost the only recreation that they had. And a lot of the miners brought out instruments, mandolins and guitars, or they made their own. We've seen mandolins and fiddles made out of coconut shells and stuff that they brought up from Panama. And besides, they made up songs too, to tunes that they knew. Stephen Foster tunes were known to everybody, and they'd make up new words to those songs.
Now, were the words that would apply to what their life was like in California at that time?
Precisely, yeah. They were songs about the experience, and they could sing these songs to the other miners, and all the miners would get a great kick out of them because they would describe experiences that they'd all gone through.
Well, we got the campfire, we got the miners, and they look like they're getting ready to get a kick out of whatever you all are going to be singing for them today. They've had a hard day down at the river panning for gold. Some of them have found some gold, some of them have been a little down on their luck, but we're all kind of here having our meal together, listening to some of this music. Now, what are we going to hear right now?
Let's do Mining is a Hard Kind of Labor.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay.
Okay.
That's what they would do in those days because there were no women around.
Oh, there's California's a humbug place out in the world in the bushes, where to meet with a poor man's fate many a poor devil pushes. Now haul off your overcoat, roll up your sleeve, mining is a hard kind of labor. Haul off your overcoat, roll up your sleeve, mining is a hard kind of labor, I believe. Oh, the miner works hard with a shovel and the pick till his body is feeble and tender. And then he goes into town at the end of the week and spends all his dust on a bender. Oh, the miner lays himself down to sleep while the fleas are jumping around him. Overgrown bed bugs over him creep, leave him a little bit less than they found him. Now haul off your overcoat, roll up your sleeve, mining is a hard kind of labor. Haul off your overcoat, roll up your sleeve, mining is a hard kind of labor, I believe.
Well, it's a classic, all right, and if you'd like to see this particular California's Gold adventure again, share it with family and friends, or perhaps donate a copy to your local school or library. It's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.